So, Mariana, it's a pleasure to be with you today. You are someone who helps twice exceptional professionals working with their brain, not against it. Can you tell me a little bit about what that means?
Thank you for asking. So basically, twice exceptional professional is someone who falls into this neurodivergent neurodiversity framework. Those are people who are either early in life, and many of them late in life identified as gifted, but also they hold another neurodivergency, but they have like this lived experience as someone who feels like their experience could be described as someone that has ADHD, that are in the autism spectrum disorder, or dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and any other kind of neurodivergences. So usually those folks, I am one of them, of those. They tend to express their experiences at work as quite challenging. In one hand, they can really explore many different edges. They are really talented. And also because they have this very specific brain wire and experience. Like, for instance, someone who is identified or diagnosed as ADHD tend to be quite creative, tend to connect different dots, but also might find challenging to deal with impulses, organization, etc., etc. I like to think of us as lost boys, like most of us, we tend to go through a professional career, really finding creative ways to endure, to pursue our dreams. Most of those people, they are also characterized by a quite strong feeling of or need for coherence, for justice, learning, and actually like the way that the job market designed makes quite difficult to perform without burnout, to find a way, like to be productive, to be self-sufficient, and not ended up quite tired and sometimes developing other mental health and sometimes even physical conditions due to this huge gap between uh, general employee experience as is designed today and what we need, to work in our best and our natural, actually not just best mode, but in our natural mode that is a little bit different from neurotypical folks, mostly like in intensity and specific, like ways of being, perceiving the world and work. And basically what I do is that I help them to understand how their unique neurotype, because there is no neurodivergent person equal to another one, even if we hold exactly the same diagnostic. I help them to actually understand how their unique neurotype and their past, present, and even their future experiences, how those things correlate with the ways that they have been working, they are working, and actually to find ways to working in a way that is not so taxing for them.
From what you said, it seems like there are a lot of people who are neurodivergent. They are not neurotypical, but a good percentage of them have not had any kind of testing or had that kind of awareness or understanding about themselves. And the second thing that I understand is that the world has been designed for neurotypicals and the workplace especially. And when they try to fit in, it kind of creates resistance or burnout, or it depletes them more than it should because the system has not been designed to accommodate their way of thinking,
Basically,
their wiring, and you help them with that.
yeah, I like to say that I help them to gain, I don't know how to say this in English, like sovereignty,
Sovereignty, yeah.
over their own, like over their own way of being and over their own mental health and neurotype, their unique neurotype. Those are people who usually they perceive the world in so many like different and sometimes opposite ways, because from one side you have this experience of being like quite talented, be the one who solve problems, who can foresee problems, who can work creatively, but also you face like the feeling of being a little bit sometimes alienated or don't have like work conditions that actually can encompass your needs in terms of recharging your energy, sometimes even with your rhythm.
Yeah, I can relate so much to this growing up because I had my fingers in 1,000 different activities. And I never had an ADHD diagnosis, but I know that I was a spirited child. I was hyperactive. I talked way more. I was adventurous and I was into a lot of things, which was unusual. I took a lot of risks. I think what helped me is I grew up in the 80s. I think I just had a lot more opportunity to explore in a physical sense. And so today, there are probably a lot of adults struggling to really understand what's going on. Why is it that they are experiencing the world differently than others, apparently? So I'd like you to cover two things for me. One is what brought you to this moment where you are working in this kind of scenario. It sounds like you have an experience that brought you here. As well, what is your message for someone else who's struggling, who has not had a label or anything to kind of put words to what they are feeling or experiencing?
Well, my background, originally, I was one of those like quite, how can I say, unsatisfied psychologists that was like questioning everything. I'm originally from Brazil, based in Spain, so I also have like this migration background. I used to work with kids in creative projects. So just like a few years, I ended up directing the organizational development department, and one of the areas was human resources. I was super unsatisfied, questioning everything. So I changed again my career. That is something that is quite normal among twice exceptional people. I started to work in the field of innovation and design, specifically focused on employee experience design. I tried to implement an employee experience co-design framework, quite typical for those who are listening to us. We love, like very hard causes and missions, like impossible missions. I think we could be called Tom Cruises because we love those missions. After 2 or 3 years working a lot, I ended up in a state of burnout, and this brought me finally to a neuropsychologist evaluation assessment. That's when I received my diagnosis. It was like 3 years ago. I was 38 years old. So during the last 3 years, I started my own small co-design studio. I worked with different companies from different sizes. I came back to the psychology as a student, as a researcher, and trying to integrate this neurodivergent, neurodiverse, and neuro-inclusive way of working to everything that I was doing. From workshop facilitation, design projects, gamification, everything literally. I am teaching in different universities, employee experience design, but I couldn't help talking about my own journey. So it's been like already 2 years since I formally incorporated neurodiversity into my work. Last year, I got certification as an ODHD coach, and also got into a postgrad studies for giftedness and twice exceptionality, and to this framework that I'm working now. It's not a diagnosis, it's a work-based assessment, a neuroaffirmative, science-based assessment that covers 3 areas: burnout and the specificities for neurodivergent folks, giftedness, and spiky profiles for neurodivergent people, and then follow up with coaching. I think what brought me here, curiosity, probably a lot of my neurodivergent characteristics, as I mentioned.
Yeah, so you were 38 years old when you were diagnosed, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you had constantly had this experience of changing careers, being really mission oriented, and always asking questions and not being fully satisfied in those roles. And it all made sense at the age of 38. Tell me how it felt for you to understand that there was something going on here that was actually a strength, perhaps, right? Yeah.
I mean, I felt like every emotion that you can imagine. It was not like changing careers. It was quite hardcore, especially when you need like to endure different migrations. I lived in different countries in the last 20 years. So of course, like finding this, especially in this moment that I was quite like fragile, was like somehow like a relief. Okay. Also, it was like amazing because then I was like, oh, okay, now I understand this. Now I understand this. But it was also like, okay, now what should I do? Because I was actually like really, really, really afraid, like, will I be able, first of all, like to recover from burnout? Will I be able to live the dream? Will I be able to support myself and my family? Yes, it was difficult, but it was also amazing because I could really find, and I am still like finding, and most of all, I'm like building different answers and different things. And I think that's what it's all about. If someone is facing this experience now, it's normal that you're feeling so many feelings. Try to find some help, try to like to share with the people that you appreciate. And I think like actually people who know other people who are going through this journey actually are the people who need more awareness, because it's something, right, in your life. It makes you look back and reassess so many things, if not all. Quite like a, like healing too, in different levels.
So, what is your message if someone is currently suspecting that perhaps these systems were not exactly optimized for their kind of neurobiology? Or I don't know if I'm using the right term, but what is a first step that they can take? Is it consulting a neuropsychologist? Like, can you cover that part again?
Yeah. So I went to a neuropsychologist, of course, but one thing like we cannot leave out of this conversation. I had and I still have so many privileges, right? So this journey doesn't affect people on the same way according to so many aspects. So right now there's like this huge, huge debate about self-diagnosis, identification. Actually, when we talk about neurodivergency, now we have like the temptation to consume so many contents online. So I would say, first of all, breathing. You have like some path ahead. Try to find supporting groups. Try to have like some compassion with yourself, because probably you are living on the hard mode without knowing your player card. And now you need to, okay, it was the hard mode, but now it's time for you to know your player card. Look for a professional, not just a professional, but also neuroaffirmative, valid assessment. Look for the right professionals. If you cannot access those professionals, like a neuropsychologist, for instance, I think in my experience, those are like the best professionals that you can go for a diagnosis. It tends to be quite expensive. So fight for your rights.
Yeah.
Like go to your GP. Of course, you are going to consume so many information online. Have someone, like to soundboard a little bit about this.
Because you don't want it to
Find,
be pathologized and made into some kind of,
yeah,
condition when there's
yeah.
so much to gain from,
Yeah, but
really.
and I mean, find like a valid science-based screening
Mm,
tools that they
mm,
are available online. Like go for the right ones, like
mm,
from official bodies, right? Do those screenings. Go to your GP. Ask for like some kind of consultation with a specialist. Take care of yourself. Like yeah, that's the main message. Like things can be a little bit more difficult for a while because you are also gaining more self-awareness. There are so many conditions, especially nowadays, that maybe won't lead you to a formal diagnosis. So that's why I think it's so important to actually go for like good professionals. You can also experience a neurodivergent state for a while due to so many other factors. We have so many situations. Maybe someone is going through a vital crisis, economic crisis.
yeah.
So I think we need to actually, like take care of our health. It's our right to look for information that can help us. Things can get easier sometimes, sometimes not. But once you find more people and once you find more neuro-inclusive places, it gets for sure much less lonelier. We can do amazing things. Just think about this. Many neurodivergent people, many twice exceptional people, they actually design the world.
Yes, because they are the ones thinking out of the box, out of the picture, and
Out of the
saying, I
box,
see things that others don't, right?
questioning the status
Yeah.
quo, right?
Mm,
I mean, it's difficult. No one said it would be easy,
easy.
but it can be beautiful too.
I love that. So I think some of the things that you shared that resonate with me are, having a high degree of self-compassion and, taking care of ourselves fundamentally, because our physical body, our nutrition, like all the other health-related aspects can also play into short-term symptoms, or I don't know what that would be. Is it a symptom or
Our experiences.
experiences?
Our
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah. So take care of the fundamentals, set the foundation, but also lean on professionals for help and advocate for yourself and choose the right person
Yeah,
to help
especially at the
you.
beginning. Like you don't need to go out and like disclosure about your neurodiversity. Like I did, but like you also have your right to your right to privacy and to enjoy like your health
Yeah.
and your work. Like those are human rights.
Excellent. So, what is burnout trying to tell a high performer? The results outside seem to show that they are doing well. At the same time, their inner experience is burnout. So, what is burnout trying to tell them based on your experience working with these professionals? What is the message there? Is it self care? Stop.
I mean, that's for me like the first thing that burnout is saying to people is just like stop, reassess, like look inside, look outside, rethink the way that you're working, rethink the way that you're living, rethink your choices. I know it's, again, easy to say. Each one of us have different experiences, right? But yeah, yeah.
So, apart from this, you're also interested in conferences, workshops, and helping people to create meaningful, connected workshops that the results last longer than the workshop hours. So, can you quickly touch on that?
So basically,
Yeah.
I really help people to understand what they need from this meeting, from this workshop, from this training, what participants need, and from which point of view and from their own traits. Remember, I'm all about working with more authenticity and finding your own way of working, in this case, your own way of facilitating. So I help people to plan, to design those sessions, and I also coach them on facilitation in a way that it isn't either they're like against their own way of being, of working, of presenting, that is
Yeah.
aligned with their projects, but also in a way that is as much inclusive as possible.
Wow, I love that. I'm loving everything that you're sharing. You're sharing things that a lot of us do not hear as a norm. So I think it's very important for people to hear this. Why in this day and age, is this work so important? Alignment as well as creating workshops that participants can really connect to. What is it about this day and age?
You just need to look at the newspaper every day. I think like we are talking so much about AI, but we need so much, like HI today. We need to be able to build, to create, to co-design, like things that matter, things that somehow are, if not restorative, regenerative. I think we need to create things that actually can like be sustainable in all aspects, like money wise, like value wise, in any sort of way, but also in terms of energy, like for the people, for the planet. I think we are now living in an era where our experience is so disconnected, but also kind of feeling that we are connected. The way that social movements they evolve are like, it's crazy. We have a third war going on. Like, what is going on? Like our planet doesn't have more like time. The environment, it's saying to us like you need to change the ways that you're doing. And I think change starts when people are able to work together, to get to a mutual understanding, to respect each other, to co-design things, like to research things.
I
This is
love
all
that.
about like being able to be together as a group.
So, what do you think human beings are seeking the most these days? Everything is available online, right? So, what is it that a workshop provides that you design?
Belonging,
Like,
belonging, totally belonging. People are really looking for belonging.
and I also recollect that before this, you mentioned loneliness as one of the things that neurodivergent folks experience in their situations. And then now you're saying that connection and belonging is what we really want. Which reminds me about your concept that I read on LinkedIn about body doubling. Can you tell me about that, what that means, and why is it important? It's all good.
Okay, so body doubling is basically something that probably we all know, that feeling. Some of us have that feeling in a library, some of us in a cafeteria. When you go to in an office, maybe not so much, but some of us. When you are together with someone else, and each one of us are doing our own things, but we are doing this like in parallel. So we get into this state of flow. It's like, it's funny. There's also evidence that it's contagious. If I get into flow and we are working together, probably you are getting into flow too in a while. So together we hold like this space of flow for focus. In the context of neurodiversity, those sessions, they basically are moments in which we get together. It could be physical. I hold those spaces online in a Zoom conference, for instance. And we work with different pomodoros, like specific periods of time.
Yeah.
And this is something that usually half an hour pomodoros, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Once you know, like as more as you know about yourself and what you need for each moment, and for neurodivergent people, I'm sure this will make a lot of sense. You can start like to tweak the amount of time. But basically we have like blocks of time. In between, we have small rests. So we are able to remember that we need to drink water. We sometimes need to stretch. We need to go to the bathroom, whatever. And then at the beginning, it's super important that we say, what do we want to do, achieve? It will help us to understand also, like, for instance, with ADHD, we kind of have like this, we are blind to time. So once you start to work like this, it changes so much. So one thing that is quite important to body doubling is at the beginning, we say, what do we want to do? If we don't accomplish, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Like the point that we guide the brain. In between each break, we decide what we want to do with that amount of time. And it really helps us to stay on track. If we don't stay on track, it helps us to see that, okay, that's okay, nothing happens. It's natural that we lose focus. It helps us to actually, like, in this like specific time frame, and in this psychologically safe environment, it actually helps us to understand more about how do we work, what is our need in terms of energy. And at the end, we celebrate what we did, and we learn from the experience, and we share those learnings. And I do this, first of all, for myself, and it's amazing.
I love it. I think it's a great concept. So some things that occur to me from what you shared is the psychological safety. You are presencing each other. Perhaps one person is kind of leading it. And then there are specific time frames so that, you can overcome the ADHD tendency to forget where it starts and ends, and have specific outcomes that you design in the beginning, right? And then you reevaluate. And so I am thinking that the more that you do it, the better you get at understanding.
And actually, it's good for like almost like everyone, but I think it's a good experience. You don't need to be like ADHD
Yeah.
to do it. It's about learning about yourself. For instance, I learned a lot how different musics, they get me into different states of flow. Yeah, I learned how do I like engage about my sensory needs, how they are changing and why. It gives you so much input, and it gives you so much focus, and it somehow gives you like this like team spirit, the state of being a group,
Yeah.
trying to achieve and respect each other.
Yeah, I love that, because what it's doing, it's giving us that same tribal, all of us pulling together for the same outcome feeling and impact. But we don't all have to be part of the same tribe. Like, we don't all have to be working on the same mission. We can work on our own missions, but get that group energy. That's what I'm seeing. Okay, that's wonderful. So, Mariana, I want to ask about your greater vision and mission. So, if the impact of your work spreads over the next 2 decades, what would you want people to say about Mariana and what she made possible for them?
I have no idea. I'm like wondering when will be the next major change, right? I don't know. Hopefully in 20 years I'm living on the countryside, like yeah, having like very like a easy, like calm life. But I really appreciate that people today tell me that they appreciate what I am doing. What I listen from people is that I'm feeling inspired that I can do this also, me. They usually say like, you are helping me to think that things are possible, or to think that is nothing actually per se wrong with me. If I can help people to find their own path somehow, and to enjoy life, and to, yeah, and to do things, even if those things means to do less, you know, I I have no idea actually. Yeah, yeah. I'd
Yeah.
love to be part of a movement of people, because I think like the next change, it's collective. It's a collective change. It's not about like someone.
I think from what I've heard you share so far, you're someone who brings people together, helps them overcome what they see as limitations and see what's possible for them, which is greater than anything they imagined till now.
Yeah, and also, I mean, and also like to have like critical thinking,
Mm,
situated thinking. Like sometimes when you're struggling, it's also important to recognize where we are, and all of this materiality that we need to change collectively, so more people can actually dream together. When I think about giftedness, like in Spanish and Portuguese, it has like completely different translation. Giftedness is sometimes like so much misinformation, stereotypes. Here we say like altas capacidades, or in Brazil it's altas habilidades, but it's actually like about huge potential. So like a potential needs to be expressed. When you plant a seed, this seed has a lot of potentials, but you need to actually to take care of the land, the water, the weather. That's why I say I love when people feel that they are inspired to change things for themselves, from themselves, but mostly together.
mm,
There's no point in talking just about neurodivergent people. Like the true richness, it's about neurodiversity. I mean, it's hard, it's not easy, make like a lot of efforts, question ourselves, but I really want to believe that we can do this. That's me being quite optimistic. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that just expresses who you are, right? Because you can see things that are possible, and the things that become possible are the things that someone or the other has thought of
Yeah,
as possible in the beginning, even when it was far fetched at that time, right?
yeah. It's like when people say like I think I heard this from the flotilla, something like we need to do something without anger. Like we
Mm,
need to do
mm,
things, and we need to celebrate, like happiness,
mm,
life. We need to change what needs to be changed, and we cannot lose our humanity, like
mm.
along the way.
Change what needs to be changed without losing our humanity. I love that. I think that's a beautiful way to sum up your work, Mariana. You are such a passionate, mission oriented leader and coach. And there are so many new things that you introduced today, and I am so eager to get that out to people who want to learn more how to be more inclusive, how to be more connected, how to do workshops better, and what is the real need of the hour for someone who wants a purpose and wants to also fit in but also be themselves. So I feel like a lot of those questions have been answered with the things that you covered today. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, dear. It was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
And